Hello everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So I have just finished recording another video for this channel where I talked about Count Cagliostro, and we went over this book, The Masonic Magician. So if that is something of interest to you, please go and check out that video as well. And if you're new to the channel, what I do on this channel is I talk about different esoteric research subjects, Kabbalah, the Tree of Life, Freemasonry, ceremonial magic, all of these sorts of things. So that's just to give you an idea of what we cover on here. This video is going to be a brief discussion on the Garden of Eden. What is the Garden of Eden? What does it represent? Why was there the fall? And why was the fall necessary for man to come to know himself? So we all know the story of the Garden of Eden. We've talked about the story of the Garden of Eden before and a lot of the esoteric components of it, especially probably in my playlist. It's going to be in my Left-Hand Path playlist. I did some videos on Lucifer, Satan, and the Devil, and we go into Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic by Thomas Carlson. That book has some really deep esoteric information about the fall of man in the garden and all of that sort of thing. So if you look at the diagram of the Tree of Life, I did a YouTube short on this. The original Tree of Life did not have Malkuth at the bottom. So there were still 10 spheres here. I happen to have it right here, the Tree of Life. So there was no Malkuth on the bottom. This sphere right here, Da'at, was actually a full Sephiroth on the tree. So you had these 10 Sephiroth right here. And this was the higher or the black sun or Lucifer. And then Archangel Michael was representative of Tiphareth, quote unquote, the lower sun or the mundane sun on the original tree. And then when mankind, quote unquote, ate the fruit, or basically was given the knowledge of the things which were forbidden, it caused this quote unquote fall. And then this Sephiroth was formed, and the abyss was formed where Da'at once was. So now the abyss is here, and you have to cross the abyss when you're working your way up the Sephirothic tree. But this original tree, without Malkuth, this was essentially the Garden of Eden. Mankind resided here in Yesod instead of here in Malkuth. And mankind was essentially just like God. He was a spiritual microcosm to the macrocosm. It was a direct reflection. On the original Tree of Life, Yesod, the astral abode of humanity, is an exact reflection of the highest plane Kether on this original tree. Without Malkuth. So essentially the Garden of Eden, it's like this, imagine just this perfect utopia. And I've been to places, even here on Earth in my lifetime, that are very reminiscent of that type of energy, that very innocent, childlike type energy, where everyone's nice, everyone's, pretty benevolent, everyone's pretty just nice people, and the Garden of Eden, it's kind of what a lot of spiritual people are seeking to get back to. They want to reconnect with the spiritual spark or kindle which is within themselves and transmute all the denser stuff, all the base material, so to speak, within our own being, so that we can become more transcendent. We talked about that in the last video. We talk about that idea a lot on this channel. The only downfall to this place, this perfect garden, and I've often had visions earlier in life, even before I got into spirituality and stuff, of what this garden was like, and it was like a perfect paradise, whether you believe that metaphorically or literally, where everything was perfect. There was no catalyst. There was no temptation until the fruit. There was no reason to fear or be fearful. But mankind was also in a state of naivety. very naive, very childlike. So we didn't know as a collective. We just kind of blindly obeyed, you know, the higher source. We were the direct reflection of that, and that's what it was. So there's this Luciferian idea, and when I'm talking about this, I mean it purely in its philosophical context. To know and to learn more and to attain enlightenment through one's own gnosis, through knowledge. It is through knowledge that one learns and one grows. So when mankind ate the fruit can also be emblematic of even the sexual act. So sex has often been, by some Gnostics, is really considered to be physical sex, is the fruit of sex, the fruit of temptation, which in essence, when you do share that kind of energy with someone, it is going to bring about denser energies. It is going to ground you. It is going to bring about a lot of earth type energies, rather than maybe the higher influences. Once you learn to bring more spirituality and more of those, shall we say, influences into your being, especially when you're in an act like that, like a sexual act, it becomes more of a sacred thing, more of a sacred act, and more of an act which has actual, there's an actual purpose. There's actually a reason for why you're doing it. It's not just that you're just blindly going at it or whatever, which there's nothing wrong with that either. But when something has a purpose, when you have an intention to make something, more transcendent than what it would be in its mundane sense, there's really something cool to that. There's something really mystical that can be found within that. So I think sex is a beautiful expression when it's done properly of, two souls uniting in kind of this, we could say, sacred union. It's the union of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. A lot of spiritual people, especially, Christians or whatever, they say that it's all a sin, that it's all evil. And to view it from that lens and to just try and bypass that and say it's all evil, we're all human. We all have that urge. We all have that desire to share that with the person that we care about. So I don't think it's not evil or dangerous at all. It's just a part of life. It's a part of, that's how creation goes on, So to view those things as evil, I see that as kind of immature. And Christianity, it can kind of make you feel guilty for a lot of those instinctual desires that you have. But if we're going to be holistic people, especially holistic practitioners, you have to look at the whole essence of it, the whole, be more holistic about it, rather than just saying this is right or that's wrong. But let's stay on the topic. The Garden of Eden, this perfect utopia, this perfect place without trials, without errors, without catalyst. It is perfection. It is divine bliss. We lived in more of an astral. We weren't physical beings yet. We were astral beings, so we existed in the astral realm purely. We didn't have these flesh, blood, and bone bodies yet. But, as I think it was maybe Crowley who said it, or maybe I'm sure somebody said it along before he did, but separation for the sake of unity. God separating itself into individual sparks or aspects of itself here in the physical world so that it can come to know itself better, so that we can understand who we really are. Because how can we know who we truly are if we don't have if there's no adversary, if there's no adversity for us to face, no challenges, none of these things, then we don't really know who we are. We're just in this ecstatic state of bliss, which is not a bad thing. I'm not trying to down, the celestial garden and the Garden of Eden. It's a beautiful, beautiful concept. But I think in a lot of ways, the fall of man it had a reason, it had a purpose. And that was to know ourselves better, even on a physical and carnal level, and to be able to be given the opportunity to overcome obstacles so that when we do transcend, when we do decide to return to that state, we come to it in a state of free will. Like we've actually chosen that. We've chosen to go back to that state after working through all the difficulties, after knowing, the true self, really more so because we descended. I think anytime there is a descent like that into matter, it gives more opportunity for the spirit to discover and to know itself further. So I think that is the really positive aspect of the fall. Now, a lot of spiritual people say the idea is to escape this realm, escape this prison, and to ascend and go back to Godhead or Source. But in a way, in a weird kind of way, it almost seems like it makes sense for everything to go back to Source, to the primordial Ein, which is the no thing, because some say that creation itself is limitation. So you're taking that immortal essence, that undivided, undifferentiated all, if you will, it's pure potentiality, and you're splitting it up into different parts. It takes separation to form creation, which is kind of it's kind of almost it's like an not an oxymoron, that's not the word I'm looking for, but you get what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, it's almost like there is the source that we all want to get back to. We realize that exists within us, but if we're just trying to go backwards, go back to source without working through the trials and errors of this realm, then it's almost like a baby trying to crawl back into its mother's womb in a weird kind of way, I think. So Source or God really wants us to become more like Source or God. We have to go through trials. We have to go through errors. We have to go through darkness. We have to integrate darkness. If we just ignore those parts or those aspects of ourselves, how can we truly understand and know ourselves and free willingly choose to create a paradise? What if we have all that darkness? What if we have all that, we could say, muck within ourselves? Not all darkness is bad. A lot of it's teaching us true aspects and components of ourselves. And that's what Catalyst brings. That's what trials in life bring. They bring character because you're working through things. How do you know who you really are if everything's just perfect, I guess is what I'm getting at. So we need to explore this fall of man more. We need to fully embrace it so that we can then work through the upward spiral. If you try to ascend yourself and work through these different grades of magic, and you're doing all these invocations, you're doing all these crazy rituals and all these operations, and you're trying to ascend yourself, there will be temptations at some point which can cause you to fall. And most people are not going to have the tools necessary or the environment to make this transcendence successfully. So that's why you see a lot of people in the occult community, and just especially with new age spirituality, which they seem to not have like a firm grounding. It's almost like their head is kind of up in the clouds a little bit. So it's like we do have to come back to earth. We do have to recognize where we are and love it for what it is, and know that this isn't the state of things forever, and know that our consciousness can affect this level of reality. We can, with our minds, use it to either build a better world, or we can use it to be destructive. And really, I think the world and the universe and the cosmos would go on with or without humanity. So it's really up to humanity to decide what direction do we go in. If we're going to further the fall of humanity and really dig ourselves into we could say the most primal aspects of our nature, then we should do this with intelligence. We should do this with consciousness and understanding, so that we are not just slaves to carnality. We are not just slaves to the physical world, but we use and utilize the tools of the physical world to come to know ourselves better, so that when we do return to Eden, it is a fully integrated process. We have fully integrated the physical things that we need to learn, so then we can ascend and work ourselves back up the ladder, so to speak. So I think really in a nutshell, that kind of, talking from a more of a, not a theoretical, coming from more of a place of theoretical thinking, or just archetypal thinking, conceptual, really looking at the concept of this fall and what it really represents and why it was necessary for humanity to fall. It's not an evil thing. It's not a sin, but it's so that we could come to understand and know ourselves better. And that's a truly beautiful thing. And, going back to the thing, how do you know yourself truly if you don't have trials and things of this nature? It's like going through a life without any adversity, imagine that, and just everything's perfect, and you have the perfect job, you have the perfect wife or husband or whatever it is, you have the perfect partner, you have all of these things, and everything's going perfectly and smooth 24/7. How would you really know who you are? You don't really come to know who you are until you're faced with the obstacle. And that's when your true character really comes out. And sometimes it can be really dark. Sometimes that leads to a lot of anger, that leads to a lot of frustration. But these emotions are not just meant to be bypassed. They're not just meant to be pushed down and shoved away in the closet. We need to feel these things. We need to understand them so that we can integrate them and move on. And then from there, we can decide if we want to, quote unquote, be a king of the material realm and stay here and glorify in the physical, or if we are then ready to transcend and work our way back to source. Or, it talks about in the, the last grade of the Qliphoth, I guess is how you say it in the correct Hebrew. But if you get to the realm of Thamael, there's a space where a black hole is opened up, and you're actually leaving all of the prior creation, and you're opening yourself up to a new world. A new portal is opened, and I've talked about that in prior videos. So a lot of you are probably already familiar with that concept. I've actually read that entire chapter, I think, at some point on this channel. I don't know if that was in the Lucifer, Satan, and Devil video series that I did. I think I did 2 videos on that subject. It would definitely be somewhere in the Left Hand Path playlist, though. So yeah, I could go on and on about certain things, but yeah, I think you get the general gist of that. Demonic forces, demonic energies being these denser, harsher, heavier energies, which we have to sometimes deal with, but teach us more about ourselves. And then the angelic energies are more about healing and trying to see the bigger picture. And in the state of adversity, in the state of being, having to work through trials, it helps us to see the bigger picture so we can bring more relief and peace of mind to ourselves, so that we don't necessarily get lost in the darkness and the chaos. We learn how to utilize darkness and chaos. You can't really control chaos, but you can guide it. And you can make it so that you come to a better understanding of chaos and all of those things and why it exists, rather than just trying to hate it and always be about order and all of these things. I like order. I like order and structure, but your appreciation for those things will come. You'll have an even deeper appreciation for those things if you've worked through the darkness first, I think. So that is a really integral part of the spiritual path, is working through kind of these darker aspects, these more, we could call them like denser or more physical aspects of the self before trying to ascend again. That way we don't fall so hard. But every now and again, we make mistakes. We're humans. We're human beings. We're meant to feel certain emotions. We're meant to experience certain things which are hard. It's really not always easy. And sometimes these really test our character, and it's in those moments that we find out who we really are. So I think I'll go ahead and leave the video at that. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed already. If you're interested in checking out the Patreon, I will put that in the video description as well. And I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to in this brief video. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you very much, and you have a lovely evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you happen to be. So until next time, peace and blessings.